Mr. Weber, we may proceed with the JDA.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. This is a meeting of the Grand Forks Growth Fund, a Jobs Development Authority. We'll begin with roll call, please.
All right. We'll start with Dockler,
Here.
Weber,
Here?
Mock,
Here.
Marshall,
Here.
Sandy,
Here.
Dean, Mayor Brown,
Here.
and Weigel, are you on yet? We have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you, Maureen. Ms. Richards, we'll begin with item 2.1.
And that is the flood update. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I wrong?
This is 2.1.
2.1.
Business Park Lot Purchase Offer, Bakken Land Enterprises, LLC.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Typically, when we have a lot of loan items, as we do today, I will introduce staff from the EDC to present. However, due to our new format and to kind of minimize the handoffs, I'm just going to do an overview of all of these items straight through. As you know, the EDC staff acts as kind of the marketing and recruitment arm for the Growth Fund. So typically these loan requests are the product of weeks and months of work between ED staff and the applicants and the lenders. So that's obviously the reason that they're best positioned to make these presentations. However, tonight we do have staff from the EDC as well as the applicants and their lenders available to join by voice if you should have questions. But I'm just going to proceed with an overview for, the sake of smoothness of this meeting.
Very good.
So with that, I will start with the item for the purchase of the lot in the business park. As your staff report says, staff has received an offer from Bakken Land Enterprises on behalf of Pro Transport to purchase about 4.5 acres in the business park. Pro Transport is a national transportation provider that was founded in Grand Forks about 36 years ago, and they are looking to purchase this parcel to construct their corporate headquarters. So that's a great thing for Grand Forks. Their offer is for $641,312, which does reflect our advertised all-in asking price of $3.25 per square foot. That is based on our decision back in 2016 that purchasers were looking for cost certainty and shovel-ready sites. So when these lots are sold, it is sold at that all-in price with all specials paid. To meet the needs of Pro Transport, the property has been replatted to configure it to that 4.5 acre size. That plat has been approved but not filed pending, obviously, the consummation of this sale. Other terms of the purchase agreement that is attached in draft form to your staff report are $10,000 in earnest money and a 120-day due diligence period, which is a little longer than normal, but given the circumstances that we're living in, certainly not out of the ordinary. With that, I would stand for any questions. And as I said, we do have representatives from the Bakken family available if you should have questions.
Hey, Meredith, if I could just interrupt, just for the record, I just want it known that Ken Bean and Danny Weigel are now on as well. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Maureen. And with that, we'll open a public hearing on item 2.1. Ms. Richards, have we received any inquiries?
Staff has received no comments.
Very good. We'll close the public hearing. This is, yes, President Sandy.
I'm just for point of clarification, is that the similar square footage price that we've been charging for other lots in the industrial park?
Yes, we've discounted it slightly for larger lots, but very slightly. So this is pretty much our advertised asking price, yes.
Very good. Then I would move approval unless someone else objects.
I have a motion from City Council President Sandy, a second from Mayor Brown. Very quickly, if I may, this is wonderful news to be looking forward, selling a lot in the industrial park, and on top of all of that, keeping a local business, keeping their national headquarters here in Grand Forks. So with that motion, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. We'll move on to item 2.2, Flex Pace Loan Request, Bakken Land Enterprises LLC on behalf of Pro Transport and Leasing, Inc. Ms. Richards.
Thank you. This is just to assist with the construction of the facility on the lot sale that we just discussed. As your staff report says, this is looking like a $3 million project with $2 million of construction financing from Alaris Financial and $1 million of owner equity. The JDA's loan of $107,693 would leverage a Bank of North Dakota grant of $200,000 and effectively buy down the interest rate on the commercial loan to 1%. This is pretty standard for flex pace loans of this type. The deferral, since it is a real estate loan, would be a 10-year period. Thereafter, the loan would be repaid in 12 monthly installments at 1%. The city's position would be second behind Alaris with a mortgage. We would also have corporate guarantees from Pro Transport and full personal guarantees from the owners, Art Debbie and Mark Bakken. As I said, this is a great thing for Grand Forks to get this corporate headquarters in our town, and this is just to assist with the construction of that on that lot that you just approved the sale of. While there is no job creation requirement with these flex-based loans, Pro Transport has estimated that they will add 5 employees with a very nice compensation package over the next 2 years.
Very good. And with that, we'll open a public hearing on item 2.2. Ms. Richards, have we received any comments or emails to this effect?
No.
With that, we'll close the public hearing. Questions or comments from JDA members?
Ken Vian, I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Mr. Vian and a second from Mayor Brown. In the words of former Council President Hal Gershman, Meredith, bring us more deals like this. This is great news. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Mr. Weber,
Council President Sandy, yes, sir.
let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How are the general public connected to us right now? How would we know if anyone has any comments or questions, just purely out of curiosity?
This is a process that we've worked out. Ms. Richards, can you describe that process? It's a great question.
This was part of the public hearing notice. It was advertised that this would be a public hearing without actual in-person participation. And so the public was directed to get comments to the city by 5 p.m. today, and any comments received would be included as if the comments were made in person.
Okay, very good. But if we haven't received any comments, why are we opening the public hearing since we technically have already had the public hearing? Is there anyone that can possibly comment?
That would be if we had received comments, that would be the point at which I would read them into the record.
But is there any way for anyone else to comment at all? Like, we're opening the public hearing. Are we expecting that someone out of the stratosphere will speak? Or do we know for a fact that no one actually can say anything?
The latter. By opening the public hearing, that gives me the opportunity to read any comments received in.
Very good. I understand. Thank you.
Any other hairs that need to be? No. Very good. Okay. With that, moving to item 2.3, Flex Pace Loan Request, HB Sound and Light. Ms. Richards.
Take you. This is another flex pace request for a local business. This is for HB Sound and Light to produce, or who produces events, to purchase some additional video equipment. This is the purchase price of the equipment is about $250,000. The request before you is to provide a loan of $16,953, which would then leverage a Bank of North Dakota grant of $31,484. And that again would buy the interest rate on the loan down to 1%. Since this is for purchase of equipment, these loans are deferred for 7 years and then repaid again as before at 1% over a year's time. This is also guaranteed by Jamie Lenski, the owner, and we would have a second position PMSI, or purchase money security interest, on the equipment.
Very good, thank you. And my inappropriate attempt at brevity masked what was a very important question to ask. We take the public hearing part very seriously and public input, but thank you, Mr. Sandy. With that, we'll open the public hearing. Ms. Richards, have we received any comments?
We have not.
Very good, closing the public hearing. Any
Move
questions or
approval.
comments? Have a motion from President Sandy, second from Mayor Brown. And anything further? Hearing nothing further, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving to item 2.4, Startup Grand Forks loan requests. I believe we are tabling indefinitely French Taste LLC's application, but we do have an application from Dallin LLC DBA Tech Pros. Ms. Richards.
Actually, we would like to just table the French Taste for 1 month.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, the other startup loan request is from Valley Tech Pros. They are a computer electronics and resource. Obviously, the way we're meeting tonight, you can see that now is probably a really good time for this business to expand. They are in business now and have been for not quite a year, but they still qualify as a startup and are looking for the maximum assistance under the startup loan program of $20,000. This would also be deferred for a year and then repayable at 5% interest over the following 4 years. This is, I believe, our 9th startup loan, and we're about at the end of the 3-year pilot program. So we will be coming back to the Growth Fund probably next month with a report and recommendations on moving forward. But tonight we are asking for a motion to approve this. The staff recommendation says to approve it subject to approval by the North Dakota Development Fund and Bank of North Dakota. That approval has been received. So we're asking for approval with no contingencies.
Very good, and we'll open the public hearing. Ms. Richards, have we received any comments?
We have not.
Closing the public hearing. Comments or questions from JDA members? Mr. Phelan?
Do we need to officially table French Taste LLC as part of a motion?
I agree. I believe we need a motion to table for 1 month. Item number A, French toast, please.
Okay, we'll take that first, please, from JDA members. Do we have a motion to table item 2.4A? A motion from Ms. Dockler, second from Mayor Brown. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That is tabled for 1 month. And then looking for a motion on item 24B, Dallin LLC DBA Tech Pros. Motion from Mayor Brown. Second from Ms. Marshall. Very good. If I may, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And if I may, just very quickly, an editorial comment. Exciting news, people continuing to invest in the city's future at this time. These are existing businesses looking to grow. It's some wonderful news during times when good news is most welcome. With that, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Weber,
Yes, Mr. Weigel.
I'd like to bring up something for discussion and see what other people's thoughts are, but
Yes, please.
as things are right now with some of the uncertainty, I wonder if it's best from this point on that we look to put some of these loans on hold until we further know the city's financial situation in the coming months.
We have a proposal for discussion. Any comments on that? Mr. Sandy?
Mr. Weber, so just for clarification, Mr. Weigel, are you, so Ms. Richards mentioned that we're almost at the end of our 3-year pilot period. This was our ninth loan application. The staff was going to come back to JDA next month, probably with a recommendation. Just so I understand what you're saying, are you suggesting that you would recommend that staff just put things on hold for a short period of time with their recommendation until we understand the magnitude of what's going on with the city's finances. So are you, for example, suggesting we should table for, have staff not come back for, say, 3 months? Or are you just saying we should indefinitely table the concept? Or are you telling her, are you suggesting we tell staff that to come back next month with a recommendation to eliminate the program altogether?
No, I think the program is a great program, and I think we should maybe even look at expanding it or extending it. But I think at the time being, for where we're at right now, we've looked at the city's finances, and I think some of these other loan programs that we're doing, while it's great that companies are investing, I also think it's important that we understand where we are financially and where we're going to be financially, and not 3 months from now, 6 months from now, but 2 years from now as well. So I think putting some of these programs on hold until we have a better financial picture might be in the best interest of what we're trying to do.
Any other comments? And
Yes,
Mr. Weigel? Yes, please, Ms. Marshall, please.
Yes, I would just like to hear from the finance department, any response to that.
Yeah, Mr. Weber, Ms. Marshall, members of council. You know, it's something that we're working through and in constant conversation with Meredith and all involved in these. So they do have discussion going forward, and we'll continue to have. I think maybe internally we just need to speak further about process going forward. We do have, you know, a healthy balance going in with our growth fund and JDA. Of course, there will be some unknown impacts that we'll know more as we go forward. But maybe we just need some more internal conversations on that. We can come back with a recommendation for the group.
Very good. That would satisfy me. Thank you.
And Mr. Weigel, was your comment limited to just the startup loan requests, or to all activities from the economic development branch of the city government?
I think I would ask that it be applied to all activities for the time being, until we have a clear picture on where we're going to be financially, because, well, it's important that companies are investing and take the opportunity to use this program. I think we're probably going to be approached by many more businesses wanting to get a shot at that money as well, to help on certain items, and maybe looking to expand different programs within it. So I think for the time being, having city staff take a look at taking that program and putting a slight stop on it for the time being might be in our best interest financially.
One thing I might suggest is that this time, because of the timing of everything, we did not have a growth fund committee advisory meeting to the JDA prior to this JDA meeting. And that's the body that includes community members to help advise on these decisions. Perhaps that's a discussion that could first be taken up with the growth fund committee. Although from my own perspective, we're dealing with a flood crisis, the health crisis, and an economic crisis. And when I look at this evening's items, the small amount of loans that'll be paid back over time in relation to the amount of investment in our future seem like exactly the kind of thing we need to be dealing with the economic crisis that we're trying to weather. But would it be sufficient for that discussion to go to the growth fund committee first, Mr. Weigel?
I'm indifferent either way. But I just think some conversations need to be had, and how we'd like to move forward is, I'll leave that open to the group, but I just think some conversations would be appropriate.
Mr. Phelan.
Mr. Weber and JDA members, I think if we could go back as staff to Mr. Weigel's thoughts and come back as part of not only the two economic development funds we're talking about, but also city finances in general. And then it wouldn't send out a message that, you know, we're still open for business. And I think with these loans, they're probably some of the most secure things that we do. You know, they're bank vetted, they're Bank of North Dakota vetted. And then, you know, we have a small stake in that. I just wouldn't want a message going out that if people want to invest in Grand Forks, and then plus there's personal guarantees, that we're not open for business. And maybe, as Mr. Weigel has talked about, we're we're strategically looking at where we're at. We may have to adapt our game plan, but if we could take that with his words of advice and come back with us, help you out with a strategy, and we don't create a narrative that we're not open for business.
Makes sense to me. And Mr. Phelan, Ms. Richards, if that could go to the Growth Fund Committee either later this month or in May, whenever the next Growth Fund Committee meeting will be held.
Duly noted. I'm not aware of any other than the French Taste loan that was tabled. I'm not aware of any other loans that are actually in the pipeline. So we can certainly address this at the next Growth Fund Committee meeting.
Very good. And with that, any further comments? Hearing none, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Sandy and seconded by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. Meeting adjourned. Thanks.
And if I may ask, just give a second as we move staff around for the next meeting. I need to move Mr. Hodak in for the Board of Equalization and Ms. Richards out as far as presenting. So I need about 30 seconds. Thank you, Mayor. You may proceed.
Thank you. The City of Grand Forks Board of Equalization, Monday, April 6, 2020 is hereby called to order. Welcome and roll call.
Okay, Weigel.
Here.
Doppler.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Mock.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
And Veen.
Here.
All present, have a quorum.
Thank you. 1.2. She's mute.
All right, duties of the Board of Equalization by City Attorney.
Mr. Swanson, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. The council's meeting tonight is the Board of Equalization. You meet in the month of April to receive any complaints or objections that people may have with regard to either their actual tax valuation or to their classification or their method of valuation as compared to other similar properties. The board's role is to determine that all properties within each class are uniformly valued and that those properties are similarly valued to like properties. You may determine that there's property on the tax roll that should not be, that is otherwise exempt, and you can determine that if there's exempt property not included on tax rolls to be added. With regard to individual properties, you may receive complaints or objections to their valuations, and you are to, as a body, determine whether or not the value placed on that property by the city assessor is appropriate. Tonight, so you're aware, you would have the ability to change any property values that you may receive complaints. However, if they were to be increased more than 15% of what the city assessor has placed on the property, additional notices have to be given. For the board's information, because of the unusual circumstances of meeting virtually, the city assessor has opened up the avenues by which these objections can be received. Through the last couple of weeks or so, the city assessor has made it quite well known that anyone having an objection or a complaint with regard to their valuation or classification could submit that in writing. They could submit it by email, or they could even submit it orally. With that, what you anticipate doing tonight would be to receive any complaints or objections that have been made, to table that action or table any action on those complaints or objections to a later date where you would have a hearing and a decision to be made. Again, the agenda for this particular item invited the members of the public to make those complaints or objections prior to 5 o'clock tonight. and they would be read into the record as if received personally. Those are the only comments I have for this particular body. I can answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, I think Mr. Hodak has a report.
1.3,
Thank you.
Assessor.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the Board of Equalization. I have a few comments tonight. First of all, I'd like to talk about the notices of increase that we sent out this year. For 2020, we sent out 868 notices of increase. Any property that has a value increase of 10% or more would get a notice of increase. Just as a comparison point, there was 984 sent out in 2019 and 1,251 sent out in 2018. So this is a relatively low number. In terms of our sales ratio study, we do a sales ratio study with the State Tax Commissioner's Office every year. And that study compares our true and full value on properties that sell to the sale price, and we come up with a ratio for each sale. We then array the sales from highest to lowest, or lowest to highest, and the median number is the sale that the state uses to calibrate whether our model is calibrated to our local market. By state law, our median ratio has to be between 90 and 100%. So the 2020 ratios are based on all the residential properties that sold in 2019. The median ratio for our residential properties was 95.7%, and the median ratio for our commercial properties was 96%. Historically in Grand Forks, we've always kind of targeted that 95 to 97% range for our market. We always try and keep our ratios, our median ratio in that category. So we're basically right where we want to be, right where we've been historically. In terms of our overall change this year, the value change that we've seen, there is an attachment on the agenda. Pull up page 1 of my document. There's basically 2 categories of change for properties. Again, following state law, we have new growth and revaluation. Revaluation is a market adjustment made to a property for a reappraisal or for the fact that our values are falling behind. We made no market adjustment this year. The only revaluation we had was on properties where we did a reappraisal and they were offered the opportunity for a physical inspection. That ended up to be about 1,900 residential properties. We sent out letters and did inspections, either interior or exterior inspections. The other type of value change would be new growth. That includes things like annexations, exempt to taxable, taxable to exempt, new construction, and reclassification. Our value change, as you can see on this form, our value change from 2019 to 2020 is 2.13%. 0.6% of that is a market adjustment, very small market adjustment, and 1.53% of that is from new growth. Again, mostly new construction, annexation, and exemptions coming off. And that's, as I started this conversation, I said we had 868 notices of increase. I didn't look at that real closely, but based on the numbers, I would guess about 3/4 of that 868 is due to annexations, replats, and exemptions coming off. When a new home exemption comes off, the value goes up by 150,000, they get a notice of increase. So a lot of those 868 are for physical changes to the property. So again, this year we have a 2.13% overall change. Last year, that change was 1.49% at this time in the year. Our commercial values changed by 2.25%, and the residential values by 2.05. Second page, John, it shows go back to the other page, John. There. This shows the taxable value change, and you can see here, this is the total taxable value change. So that would estimate that the value of a mill would go up by about $4,870 based on these numbers. That's all I have for my general comments. Are there any questions? Okay.
So hearing none, we'll go on to 1.4.
Receive formal protests.
Motion and a second in action.
Yes, I have two formal written protests. One is from Menards at 3550 32nd Avenue South. And the second one is from Shields at 2800 32nd Avenue South. Both of these properties are being represented by the same tax rep, Mr. Daniel Willert. He's a tax manager for Descharm, McMillan and Associates of Indianapolis, Indiana. Those are the only two protests that we received this year, and so I'm including those for the record. My request would be that we table these until April 20th, and we could meet again as a Board of Equalization prior to the City Council meeting on that night. I'll have staff reports ready for these. You can act on my recommendation, and we can finalize the values at that time. If that's okay with the city attorney, that's how I would like to proceed.
Mr. Swanson?
Yeah, that would be appropriate. Just so the board knows that you would actually be setting up a hearing for the property owners to make whatever presentation they would like to make at that time as well. So the motion would be to receive the protests and table them to a meeting of the Board of Equalization on April 20th, 2020.
So moved.
Mr. Weber, motion, second. Ms. Marshall, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a
Yes,
quick
Mr.
question.
Sandy? Yes,
Sorry,
Mr. Sandy.
so are we going to allow whomever those people are to have access to be presenters on Zoom so that they can present their case to us?
Mr. Bergstrom?
So we can see them rather than have them just on the phone or only audio?
Mr. John?
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Phelan.
Well, if I can answer that question, Your Honor, Mayor Brown, members of the board, what will happen for that hearing, and it also happen for any other public hearing, we post a phone number in the agenda. So if somebody wishes to be heard in a public hearing, in addition to writing written comments, they can call that number and be provided information to get into the meeting through Zoom. We do not publish that information on the agenda because of the concern for hacking. So I probably should have answered your question earlier, President Sandy, but the members of the public can get in either by submitting written comments by email or otherwise, as providing the agenda notice, or they can contact and request participation rights.
Thank you.
Swanson, that's very good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So next would be item 2, correct? Adjourn?
Yes, sir.
We need a
Move we
motion.
adjourn.
Mr. Weigel motions, Mr. Sandy seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, much like the transition to the previous meeting, if we could have a second while we can get the presenters into this meeting for the city council meeting, I need about 30 seconds, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are all set.
Thank you. The city of Grand Forks, a proud home of the University of North Dakota City Council meeting Monday, April 6, 2020 is hereby called to order. Welcome and roll call.
Okay, Weigel.
Here.
Doppler.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Mock.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Thank you. 1.2,
We
please
have the Pledge
stand
of
and
Allegiance.
please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You did. Thank you. Under 1.3, mayor's announcements. As of 11 a.m. this morning, we had 11 cases of COVID-19 in Grand Forks County. It shows the need for us to continue to be diligent and stay at home. So stay in place, defend your space, 6 feet, and to cover your face now is the latest recommendation. So wear masks to protect yourself and the general public. So this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're early in it and people are already looking for an end date, which no one can predict. So we need to continue to be diligent so our community emerges healthy so we can recover more quickly economically. And the economy will recover, but people may not. So please be diligent and be careful and be aware of those most vulnerable so we don't spread the disease. The virus doesn't spread itself. You spread it, we spread it. So please stay home, stay in place, and do your best. The second item on the mayor's announcements is we're executing our flood plan. The floodgates are in place. The pumps are working. The river is moving swiftly. The river banks are soft and muddy and slippery. So please be aware of that and stay off the greenway, stay away from the river because we don't want to add you as a statistic in this time. We need every citizen. And this goes neatly into fill out your census form. Every person counts because every person counts. So we want to count every person. Every person is worth $19,100 over 10 years. So please fill out your census form for our data. And then also we need supporting businesses to apply for our local Paycheck Protection Program. It's very important you do this and early because the time is limited and the funds are limited, and when they're gone, they're gone. So please act quickly so that we can improve the economic health of our community post-pandemic. So we're prioritizing and adapting new business strategies in our community. So adapt now and prepare to be viable after the pandemic. I now, item 2, awards, presentations, and proclamations, 2.1.
Flood update by Al Grasser.
Mr. Grasser, I understand the river is 45.4 feet presently and will be 46.5 feet on April 11th.
Well, that was a really good summary, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We're next.
Actually, you covered a lot of it. Again, the river's at about 45.4. We're going to have a later crest due to the snow melt that's going on right now from the precipitation event last Thursday. So for Grand Forks, that brings us in at about 46.5 next Sunday. Likewise, some of the upstream floods are having a secondary crest, such as Fargo. So that's all basically due to that precipitation event we had. As you mentioned, all the pump stations are operating. Stop logs are in place. The necessary bridges that are closed, the Demers and the Point. I will note there's about 3 openings that have not had stop logs installed. That's at Elks Drive, Lincoln Park, and the railroad downtown. And the reason those aren't installed is those the sill elevations there are about 50 or 51.5 feet flood gauge, which is significantly higher than what we're looking at right now for flood fighting. So those are the only ones that are open. If we need to address them, they can be addressed in pretty short order. With that, that's my report, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Grasser? Any comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
2.2.
COVID-19 update.
And the Public Health Director, Debbie Swanson.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, and good evening, members of the City Council. I have a short presentation for you this evening. I'm going to ask John Bernstrom to pull it up. I did also send it to you, so you should be able to follow along with your copy that was sent via email. The presentation this evening will be a little bit shorter than it was last week, but I wanted to give you some critical new information. Are you able to see it? Here we go. This is the update for as of today. I have some new information that's statewide. You can advance to the next slide, please, John. In North Dakota, there are now 225 positive cases, and there have been 7,213 total residents of the state tested, or at least those are results that we have so far. 74 people have recovered. Currently hospitalized are 19, and the total hospitalizations to date are 32. With 3 deaths. So you can see that once people enter the hospital, oftentimes it's a lengthy hospital stay for them until they are recovered. This is a new piece of information that our state health department is going to be reporting from now on. You can go to the next slide. I wanted to give you just a little bit of a trending curve for our state. The trajectory is probably not as steep as what we've seen in some areas of the country, but that's because, as the mayor mentioned, we're still at the beginning of seeing cases here. But you can see that bottom line is the cases per day, and then the top line is the cumulative number with reaching 225 today. Next slide, please. This is what it looks like statewide. You can see that the concentration of the most cases are in Burleigh County and Cass County, which are population centers, but we're starting to see them tick up in Stark and Montreal County. Morton and Ward have had some cases early on and are still continuing to do contact tracing there. And then Grand Forks with our 11 cases now, just a little bit darker color. And then in the outlying counties surrounding those population centers, you will see there's a few cases in each one of those counties that are not blue. Next slide, please. I think it's important to know what we're seeing in terms of source of exposure. Each person that tests positive has a contact investigation initiated, and this is to help determine where their contact may have occurred. Close contacts can be identified by a known person that they had contact with who is also positive. And then our largest group is that 84 of community spread. These are people who probably developed symptoms and were tested, and they have no known source of exposure. Possible travel is 42. This one did move up a little bit from the last week, but known travel is really not a significant factor right now. It was early on when people might have been returning from various states where there was more widespread disease, but right now the travel has not shown to be as significant as the other factors. And then still a fair number of people are under investigation, which means we're still trying to determine. The contact investigation has just begun, and that's largely due to a lot of cases that were started over the weekend across the state. I should note there that data is not as of March 30th. I didn't get that changed on this slide. I was reusing a template, so that is as of today. Next slide, please. These are the cases by age group, and we get asked this a lot. We have known since the beginning of this that we are not seeing a lot of cases in younger children, and it could be that their disease is much more asymptomatic, as mentioned before, but we are seeing a fair number in the 20 to 29 and 30 to 39, as well as 60 to 69. So this is a really important thing to consider, especially as any of those individuals have any underlying health conditions that does put them more at risk for severe disease. Next slide, please, John. I don't have a lot that is different about our local health response. There's just more of it. We're daily meeting with leadership of city departments, lots of meetings like this, the county commission, our board of health. We do meet with the Altru, UND, and Grand Forks Air Force Base on a regular basis. And then our hotline continues, or phone line continues to be very busy. We have somebody that answers it Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And on the weekends, we are finding that people are messaging us on Facebook or directly contacting us via email and in other methods, and we're able to answer their questions. And as I mentioned before, the contact tracing is a really important part of the epidemiological process to determine how widespread disease is. But it's also very time consuming, and we did end up with a situation where we had to go back and start an investigation over again because a key piece of information wasn't available to us at the beginning of an investigation. As I mentioned before, we have a team of about 15 staff that are doing this work. Sometimes they'll spend up to 4 hours on a weekend doing contact tracing investigations, making phone calls. And we've also engaged MPH students at UND to help with this. They are working through a contract with the state, but we have contact with that program and are very aware of what they're doing. And then next slide. We continue to be very involved with coordinating with the North Dakota Department of Health for specimen transports, a lot of prevention messaging. The state cash asset management was moved out to all of the major hospitals. As has been mentioned, about 40% of that cash went out to the hospitals across the state. And we're also working with our local public health units in our region. Additionally, we're working with the healthcare system on surge capacity. They have this pretty well figured out and know what they need to do, but there's also a movement to determine where there would need to be additional alternate care sites. And fortunately, our state has been very proactive about this and has identified 8 locations in all regions of the state where there may need to be some alternate care sites. And this is being managed by DES and FEMA, and then supported by the Army Corps of Engineers. We are still doing a small amount of fit testing with N95 masks and have completed a lot of that work with healthcare organizations, but we're limiting that so that we can preserve all those N95 masks. And next slide, please. I think this is more of the same, just the very busy schedules every day. Starts early in the morning and goes until late in the evening. Our staff are working almost completely from home or out in the field. And then next slide. These are a couple of our newer communication messages. The one in the turquoise color on the left is just giving people some ideas about how they can stay active while they're at home. We know people are getting restless, want to know how long this is going to last, would like to get back to their routines, especially physical activity. So we're trying to provide some really concrete things that you can do and still maintain that 6 feet apart. And then on the right side, you'll see some examples of various state agencies, including Grand Forks Public Health made it onto this one. And we showed pictures there of all of our staff working remotely, doing various activities to respond to COVID. Next slide. Once again, our hotline information that's on our webpage. And next slide are our resources. And one more resource slide. And then I wanted to end with this very last slide. You can advance it one more time, John. It's National Public Health Week, and we would normally have had a proclamation, but in all honesty, we simply have not had the time to devote to recognizing that it's National Public Health Week in the ways that we had hoped to do. Our staff have been engaged in a billion step challenge. I think we've walked quite a few million steps as a team. We had hoped to do some other activities this week, but put everything on hold. But I do want to recognize the extraordinary work of public health professionals, not only at Grand Forks Public Health Department, but our colleagues around the state and also national partners. So there's been a little bit of messaging around public health and its contributions to the fight against COVID and coronavirus. So if you see a public health worker, please tell them thank you. And that concludes my remarks. Unless there are questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, public health is certainly important for us to emerge healthy as a community after this pandemic. Any questions or comments for our Director of Public Health, Mr. Sandy?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I sent an email earlier today to Ms. Swanson and others on this call regarding the questions that I received earlier today. I appreciate everyone, Ms. Swanson, you taking some time to try to respond to me. I know that you've been very busy and I really appreciate everything that you're doing for our community. I'll reiterate that the questions that we get from our constituents, although they're very important, they're more necessarily more important than all the other tasks that all of us are dealing with on a daily basis. I did want to add that we're in a, and this is as much for everyone on the council as it is for anyone tuning in. We're in a very interesting time and in a very difficult position because we have a certain group of people within our community that are saying that we're doing too much. We're overstepping our bounds. People need to get back to work. Businesses need to remain open and so on. And we also have the group of people that are reaching out saying, hey, we're not doing enough. The mayor's not doing enough. The governor's not doing enough. We should be shutting things down. People should be sheltering in place. I had a very nice conversation with one of all of our constituents today, this morning. He's very concerned. He suggested that that our community and our leadership should be taking a more active approach, and we should be monitoring flights coming in and out of the airport. We should be monitoring all cars coming in and out of Grand Forks. We should be having our local police department driving the streets, looking for people that are congregating together and telling them that they need to separate. We should be tracking people, and on and on and on. It was very good. It was a very good conversation. And this is not someone that I would typically say is an anarchist. This is somebody that's concerned, a rational person that's concerned about the safety of the citizens of Grand Forks and his safety, and I presume his parents' safety and mine and all of yours. So I just wanted to, I want to bring this up because I know Ms. Swanson's going to send a message to me later, and presumably we'll share it with everyone with additional details about how the city should be reacting to these things based upon, and I don't mean to speak for Ms. Swanson, but I believe it's based upon what's been going on elsewhere around the country and what are best practices, and just in general, how people should be approaching social distancing and other things. I want people to know that there's fear in our community for all of us. This is not just about people worrying about their safety. They're worrying about their friends and family. And I think, Mayor, I really appreciate your approach and your press conferences that you've been doing, trying to get information out from public health, from Ms. Swanson, from Altru, when Dr. Brenner's on from the school district. That's great. I don't know. Again, as I put in my email, I have nothing but questions and no answers because I think this is very personal for everyone. And I think there are lots of opinions on this. My only point of this is I hope everyone can try to put themselves in other people's shoes and understand, why is someone saying we need to get back to work? And those people should say, why are the people saying we should all shelter in place? And try to understand the positions that the other people are coming from. And then maybe we can find some common ground. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. It's evident people love this community. Ms. Marshall?
Yes, I just wanted to comment, and this is similar to what Mr. Sandy was commenting that at a time like this, communication is so very, very important. And it's important that the communication be timely and it be accurate and that it be honest and that it be complete. And I feel like we're getting that. And I just wanted to do a shout out to Ms. Swanson and her department, as well as you, Mayor Brown, and all of the city staff. I'm humbled by the leadership that all of you are showing, the work all of you that are putting into this. It's very selfless, and it's a true commitment to public service. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Any further council comments before we move to the next item? 2.3.
Census update.
So Mr. Gangler, is it true that every person counts, so we must count every person?
That is absolutely true. So I just need a few minutes to kind of walk everybody through some of the things we have on the city website relative to the census. So if you go to grandforksgov.com, go to the services drop-down menu, and then go to the far left bottom corner, you'll see 2020 census. So what we have on the website now is Respond Now, which actually takes you right to the census, where you, if you haven't done it yet, which you should get on it, start your questionnaire, and it'll walk you right through the process. And then we have daily updates on percentages. So the bars that you're seeing there, the blue bar is the final count from 2010 census, and then the green bar is today's, yesterday's response per category. So national level, 44.5. North Dakota is right at that national level. I found a different website today that showed North Dakota was ranked number 25 out of 52 in terms of the response rates to date. And then just for tracking purposes, we're also looking at UND census areas and then the Air Force Base. And we're presently waiting for some more information to confirm group quarter counts, both on campus, and then an update on the air base. And if we scroll down, just a few facts, things that we've been talking about from earlier on. And then also there is, I won't go through it now, but there's this interactive map where you can click on a state, choose a city, get down to the actual census tract level of each tract, of which we have 18. So it kind of gives you an idea on a daily basis of what we have going on. I'd also like to share a little Instagram post. Deeks Pizza is really stepping up to support the census. So I'm going to play just a real quick little clip for you. Wait for it. So if there's any questions, that's all I have for my update for now. And I want to extend a thanks to all the staff and folks that have been really behind the scenes helping out with this whole census effort.
That was excellent, Mr. Gangler. I think even I could do it. So any comments from the council? I can't see anyone yet. If there is, please speak up. Are there any comments from the council? Good job, Mr. Weber says. Thank you very much, Mr. Gangler. Now we'll go to 2.5. Oh, 2.4.
2.4 is an election update that I can give all of you. So Mayor Brown, members of City Council, I'll just give you a brief update regarding the election. As you may already be aware, and in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Burgum did issue an executive order on March 26th, which encouraged North Dakota counties to authorize voting by mail for the June election. Then on March 27th, the Grand Forks County Commission passed a motion to conduct the June 2020 election via a mail ballot. What you did get attached to your agenda tonight was a memo from Assistant City Attorney John Warkup and also included is the Grand Forks County resolution regarding the June 9th, 2020 election process. This is just for informational purposes, as no action is required of the City Council. Also, as a reminder, the City of Grand Forks has no ability to alter either the filing deadline or the date of the election, as that is controlled by the state. But I did want to pass all this information on to you. The filing deadline was today at 4 p.m. for petitions to be filed in the city auditor's office. So just as an update, we have received and verified petitions, and I can go through that list with you. For mayor, we have Mayor Brown, Brandon Bochinsky, and Robin David. In Ward 1, we have Danny Weigel. Ward 3, we have Brett Weber. Ward 5, we have Kyle Kavami. And Ward 7, Ken Veen. And for Park Commissioner, we also collect petitions for that. We have Russell Kraft. So that's what has come in and has been verified as of 4 p.m. today. But I'm here if you have any questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Sandy.
I'm trying to clarify. So, Ms. Storstad, anyone that wants to run for any of those positions, they must file with the city, correct?
That is correct. They have a deadline of April 6th at 4 p.m. to file their petitions with the city auditor's office.
So there's only one person that is filed in each of the wards, and there's only one person that filed to run for the Park District.
Mr. President Sandy, members of council, that is correct. We did receive just one running in each of the 4 wards that has an open seat, and the Park Commission, there are 2 openings. We did receive just one that was able to be verified. We were in receipt of one other one, but did not have enough signatures turned in to be placed on the ballot. So just so you know, with that, there has been communications with the state, and they were still requiring the full number of signatures to be included on the petition. They did make some exceptions to be able to email those signatures back and forth, but they were still, for instance, with the Park Commissioner spot, would have needed 300 signatures to be placed on the ballot.
And just for a point of clarification for the audience, where would people file their petitions for county commission as well as for the school board?
The school is with the school board, and the county seats would be with the county.
Thank you, Ms. Torstad. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Weber?
Ms. Torstad or Mr. Swanson, is it in the city's ability to alter any of those requirements? Can we extend the deadline for the city seats at least, or is that set by state?
Maureen?
Mr. Weber, members of council, that is a deadline that is out of our control. That is controlled by the state, and the city has no authority or ability to adjust any deadlines.
I suspected that was the case. Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Storstad? Hearing none, we'll go on to 2.5.
Proclamation for Fair Housing Month, April 2020.
So Fair Housing Month equals opportunity, April 2020. One of the greatest freedoms enjoyed by Americans is the freedom to live in a home of one's choice. This promise made to us by the nation's fair housing law, which requires that all people be treated equally in connection with the sale or rental of housing, regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, familial status, or religion. This year marks the 52nd anniversary of the Federal Fair Housing Act. The original legislation targeting the elimination of housing discrimination in America. April has been designated Fair Housing Month since the adoption of fair housing legislation in April 1968. And it's the time each year when the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, High Plains Fair Housing Center, and other groups organize events, activities to focus attention on the issue of equal opportunity in housing. Each resident of the city of Grand Forks is urged to support efforts to put into practice the principles of freedom, justice, and equality upon which this great nation was founded during the nationwide observance of Fair Housing Month. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of Grand Forks, North Dakota, hereby proclaim April 2020 Fair Housing Month in our city and urge all citizens to honor and abide by the letter and spirit of the Fair Housing Law. 2.6.
Proclamation Telecommunicator Week, April 12th through the 18th, 2020.
So we have a proclamation, National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 12th through 18th, 2020. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. When an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. The safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Grand Forks Public Safety Answering Point. The public safety telecommunications are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. Public safety telecommunications are the single vital link for our police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical services by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. Public safety telecommunications, the Grand Forks Public Safety Answering Point, have demonstrated substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. Each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, the resolved that the City of Grand Forks declares the week of April 12 through 18, 2020 to be National Public Safety Telecommunications Week of the City of Grand Forks in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and our citizens safe. With that, we go on to item 3. Public hearings and second readings of ordinances, 3.1.
Determination of insufficiency of protest on the following projects, and we'll start with letter A, the paving and street lighting project 8094.2, District 746. This item, we would need a motion to table to May 4th.
So we need a
Table to May 4th.
Mr. Sandy motions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Mock, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Item 4A is tabled to May 4th. And now Maureen,
I'm going to do the rest together, B through I. Paving project 8157, District 742. Paving project 8184, District 748. Paving project 8098, District 739. Paving project 8124.1, District 749.1. Project 8124.2, District 749.2. Paving project 8124.3, District 749.3. Paving project number 8124.4, District 749.4. And finally, paving project 8158, District number 743.0. There have been no protests received on any of these projects.
so open the public hearing on 3.1B through I. I will close the public hearing on those items. Need a motion, a second from council.
Move.
Weigel motions, Mr. Vian seconds. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carries. Thank you. Item 4, action items. Who would like action items pulled for discussion? I will pull 4.1 and 4.2. Anyone else like action items pulled for discussion? If not, that leaves.
Mayor,
Yes,
you need to be recused.
okay, we need a motion to recuse Mr. Vian from what?
Mr. Mayor, I think it's 4.14, and I'd like to be recused. I'm assuming that's what Mr. Bean would like to be recused from.
Ms. Mock and Ms. Vian recused from 4.14. Mr. Weigel motion, second. Ms.
Second.
Marsh, thank you. So we have a motion to recuse Ms. Mock and Mr. Vian. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carries. You're recused from those 2 items. That then leaves 4.0, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, 4.10, 4.11, 4.12, 4.13, 4.14, 4.15, 4.16, 4.17, 4.18 on the agenda. So we need a motion and a second. Mr.
Approval, Mayor.
Motions, Mr. Weigel seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed. 4.19 has been pulled from the agenda. And now we go to 4.1.
Demers Light Pillars and Downtown Update. This was tabled from March 16th.
And the motion, the city administration would like this tabled indefinitely. May I get a motion and a second or thought? Mr. Weigel motions to table indefinitely. Second.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carries. Thank you. 4.2.
And that's the bid number 2020-25 fleet vehicles with trade-in units. You should have an updated staff report to reject those bids.
We do have that. So do we have discussion or do we have a motion? Mr.
Move to
Sandy,
accept the bids, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. And then second, Mr. Weigel, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carries. Thank you. Any introductions to ordinance, Maureen? Nope. With that, we go to item 5, informational items, 5.1.
The investment portfolio is of February 29th.
And then item 6, approval of minutes and bills, 6.1.
The vendor list and engineer's estimate as presented.
Need a motion and a second to pay the bills. Ms. Doctor motions, Ms. Mock seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 Carries, the bills are paid. Item 7, our city administrator comments, Mr. Phelan.
Mayor Brown and members of the City Council, again, thank you to the entire city team with these 2 emergencies, the flood response and the COVID response. I want to thank all the folks that are out there working day to day. And we have lots of dedicated city employees that work on behalf of the city of Grand Forks. And we do that in part through the leadership of Mayor Brown and also for our support and leadership with our city council. So we really appreciate that, and it makes our jobs all that much easier for us as we're moving forward. And along with these emergencies, I think we're still conducting our day-to-day operations. And it's really important in emergencies that we're able to conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis, and staff is doing that very well too. So I want to give a large shout out to our leadership of City Council and Mayor Brown and all the departments that are working together so very well. The one thing I did want to bring up, and I think we've been executing pretty well, and maybe because Councilmember Weber is kind of a pro at these Zoom meetings, hopefully we're even making him a little bit proud on how we've been able to conduct ourselves on these. At first, we thought in April that we would through the mayor's order, we wouldn't have committee of the whole meetings. And then we got some feedback that we should have meetings throughout April on Mondays. And then we were thinking we'd have our scheduled city council meetings. And then instead of committee of the whole meetings, we would have special city council meetings, because then we would do ongoing updates of where we're at with the emergencies that we're in the midst of right now. We'd also have the ability to act on items if we wanted to, and you could also defer those items too. And in lieu of a committee of the whole meeting, Mayor and I discussed this this afternoon, and I think because we've kind of figured out some things, we're open-minded with the city council. Obviously, there's a committee of the whole meeting next week, Monday. Right now, our strategy would be to have a special city council meeting with updates and action items, and you could always defer action items if you wanted to. But I guess tonight, maybe when we go around, we would like some discussion on some feedback on what you'd like to see moving forward through April and into May, and on what you'd like to do. And to Mr. Weber, as part of the JDA, I think Meredith discussed that we should get back to having growth fund committee meetings too, and I think we can perform those pretty well through April too. So trying to get back to some normalcy. At the same time, we'd like to take your feedback during this emergency situations that we're in.
So do you want feedback tonight, or will people get back to us during the week about how they'd like to?
We could have a general consensus, maybe looking at Council President Sandy, of any way that you'd like us to operate. Is it okay if we just call city council meetings throughout April in lieu of the committee of the whole meetings, and operate in that form or fashion through April? That's what we would do without any feedback. That would be our action plan.
So I would prefer to hold committee of the whole meetings, but I will defer to the mayor. If that's what the mayor would like to do through April, I'm totally fine with that. So that would be my opinion. I'm open to other suggestions.
No, I'm yes.
This is Ken. I kind of like what President Sandy said. I like the committee of the whole, and then go to council, continue our existing protocol. I understand that if we have a committee of the whole meeting, we can still take action if emergency action is needed. But the advantage to, I think, the committee of the whole meetings is we make a motion at 1 week, and we have still a full week before we take final action, and that gives us some time to do investigations and make sure what we're doing. So I kind of like maintaining the current system.
Thank you. I approve as well. Any other council comments?
I would just add, and Mr. Swanson can correct me if I'm wrong, but with the committee of the whole, you can still take action as long as it's listed on the agenda as an action item.
Okay. And then Mr. Weber, you had a comment?
Yes, one of the things I heard Mr. Phelan say was the importance of providing weekly updates. Is there a reason that those can't be provided to a committee of the whole?
We would do in both situations. We will update.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so we take that, you would like a committee of the whole on the second and fourth Mondays of the month? And a council
Please,
meeting.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
That sounds good to me. Any further
Maybe-
council comments?
Maybe just a procedural question for Howard. I think maybe one of the emergency orders was to cancel the cows in April, so I would look to him on what we would need to do just procedurally.
Mr. Swanson?
I don't know if I'm still muted or not.
No, sir, we hear you.
All right. The emergency order would not preclude a committee of the whole meeting from being held. The question was whether you wanted to set them up as special council meetings or committee of the whole meetings. I understand based upon this information and discussion, we will retain the committee of the whole meetings and then go to the council meetings. And we do have, or you do have the authority to act on an agenda item if there were a need during the committee of the whole meeting without actually calling it as a special meeting. So I think you're in a good position.
Good. Thank you, Howard. Mr. Weigel?
Just briefly, I like the committee meetings, but I know many people within the city and staff members are working already long hours and long days. And so we're asking them to come in and continue to work on those committee nights as well. So that's something to think about. So I'm perfectly fine with having the council meetings only. And then if we need to have an emergency council meeting, I'm also fine with that. I'm just thinking of city staff, they're already working long hours and long days and doing a lot of different things. If we need to continue to have the committee hearings, if we just don't get by with our emergency city council meetings, as they're called.
Any further council comments? So I guess we'll proceed with the council meetings first and third Mondays and the cow meetings second and fourth, as per your request. Next, we go on to item 8, mayor and council member comments. Councilman Weigel,
No, thank you, Mayor.
and then Councilwoman Dockler,
No, thank you.
Councilman Weber,
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Mock.
Nothing of substance, but Mr. Mayor, how would you like it if people have concerns or other items that they'd like the city to take up? Would you like those comments to your office? Is there a good way for people to file those?
Yes, contact our office and with Mr. Phelan. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
And 311 is still an option if they wanted to contact that way?
Ms. Dorstead says yes, and she nods in the affirmative. So yes, we encourage people to participate. And with that, we give Councilwoman Marshall,
No, thank you, Mayor.
Council Vice President Vian,
Nope, I have nothing. Thank you.
Council President Sandy,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I think Mr. Phelan is probably overwhelmed with work as it is. So sending any comments that people might have to our public administration officer, Mr. Hege, would probably make more sense for lines of communication. And Mr. Phelan has more than enough work that he needs to do. That's just my opinion. I also want to say thank you to Mr. Veen, Mr. Weber, and Mr. Weigel for not only being willing to serve another 4-year term, especially in times when things are difficult, but for actually getting out and getting your signatures done and getting your petitions in on time. You obviously are not only committed to our community, but you're committed to getting your work done on the schedule that matters. So it's important that people should know that you took the time. The reason other people aren't, not that, I mean, of course, everyone's scared of running against you, but Also, people weren't out getting their signatures, and those that wanted to run didn't get them in on time. And so you guys showed a lot of dedication. I really appreciate that. We should also put out kudos to Ms. David, Mr. Buczynski, Kyle Kwame, and I can't remember who put their name in for Park District. But either way, appreciate that people want to serve our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, as well, for getting your petition in on time.
Thank you. I too appreciate your willingness to serve, because we have a difficult future ahead of us with this recovery from the COVID-19, from the economic, social impact that that's going to have on our community. So I appreciate your willingness to serve, because this brings back memories of 1997 when our community had to recover from the flood. And we were fortunately had people who volunteered to serve on council to help us get through that and to get to a great place in our history. And that's going to need to be happening again. And with that, Mr. Sandy, are you done? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
So again, please be vigilant in your response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Please stay at home. Please stay in your place. Please be 6 feet from anyone else, and now cover your face, because it seems to be working out as one of our management strategies. Please stay away from the river. The banks are slippery. The river is running fast. It's a dangerous situation. Every person counts, so we need to count every person. So please fill out your census form. And again, I encourage the small businesses to apply for that Paycheck Protection Program, because it's vital to the recovery of our community, because small business is the heart of our community as well. So with that, we have 2 things. Proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. We appreciate our first responders, and then our Fair Housing Equality Act, which makes our country a great place to live. With that, a motion to adjourn. Mr. Weigel motions, Mr. Weber quickly seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.